The silence in the packed auditorium was deafening. 5,000 people sat frozen as Travis Kelce stood at the podium, his hands visibly trembling as he held a piece of paper that looked like it had been folded and unfolded 100 times. Behind him, on the massive screen that dominated the stage, was the photo of a little boy with the brightest smile anyone had ever seen, a 4-year-old with sparkling blue eyes and a Chiefs jersey that was 3 sizes too big for his tiny frame. Travis looked out at the crowd, his eyes glistening with tears he was no longer trying to hide. The NFL superstar, known for his confidence and charisma, looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in a way that no one in the audience had ever seen before. His name was Ethan, Travis began, his voice cracking on the first word. Ethan James Morrison, 4 years old. And 3 days ago, I received a phone call that changed everything I thought I knew about life. The audience leaned forward collectively, sensing they were about to witness something unprecedented. This wasn't a typical charity event or publicity appearance. This was something raw, something real, something that had shaken one of America's most beloved athletes to his core. Travis looked down at the paper in his hand, took a shaky breath, and continued. Ethan's last wish was to meet me, just to meet me. And what I want to read to you tonight is a letter I wrote to him, but also to myself, and maybe to all of us who think we understand what really matters in life. He paused, glancing up at Ethan's photo on the screen, and for a moment, it looked like he might not be able to continue. But before I read this letter, I need to tell you how we got here. I need to tell you about a phone call that came at 11:47 p.m. 3 nights ago, while I was sitting in my mansion, worried about contract negotiations and wondering what expensive car I should buy next. 3 days earlier, Travis had been sprawled across his leather couch, scrolling through his phone, half-watching highlights from the previous week's game, when the call came from an unknown Kansas City number. He almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers usually meant reporters or people wanting something from him, but something made him pick up. "Hello, Mr. Kelce?" The voice was soft, hesitant, with the kind of exhaustion that comes from too many sleepless nights. "This is Jennifer Martinez. I'm a pediatric nurse at Children's Mercy Hospital here in Kansas City. I'm so sorry to call you this late, but I didn't know who else to contact." Travis sat up, immediately alert. Medical professionals didn't call NFL players at midnight unless something was seriously wrong. "Is everything okay? How can I help you?" "I have a patient," Jennifer continued, and Travis could hear her voice breaking slightly. "A little boy named Ethan Morrison. He's 4 years old. He's not going to make it much longer. Maybe a few days, possibly a week if we're lucky." Travis felt his stomach drop. "I'm sorry, but why are you calling me?" "Because," Jennifer said, and now she was clearly crying. "This little boy has been fighting brain cancer for 8 months. He's been through surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, everything we could possibly try. And through it all, through every painful procedure and every scary night, he's held on to this one dream." "What dream?" "He wants to meet you, Mr. Kelce. He has your jersey, your poster on his wall, your trading cards that he looks at every single day. When the pain gets really bad, he tells everyone that when he meets Travis Kelce, he's going to ask you to teach him how to catch a football properly. Because maybe if he learns, the cancer will see how strong he is and decide to leave." The words hit Travis like a physical blow. He found himself standing without realizing it, pacing across his living room as the reality of what he was hearing sank in. "The thing is," Jennifer continued, "we've tried going through official channels. We contacted the Chiefs organization weeks ago, sent email, made phone call. Everyone's been very polite, but you know how it is. There are procedure, protocol, waiting list, and Ethan doesn't have time for waiting." Travis was quiet for a long moment, processing what he was hearing. A dying 4-year-old who believed meeting him might somehow help him fight cancer. A little boy who was running out of time while adults shuffled paperwork and followed procedure. "Jennifer," Travis said finally, "what's your hospital's address? I'll be there first thing in the morning." "Mr. Kelce, I can't ask you to—" "You didn't ask me to do anything," Travis interrupted. "I'm telling you, I'll be there." "What room is Ethan in?" "Room 314 in the pediatric oncology ward. But Mr. Kelce, I need to prepare you. Ethan is very sick. The treatment has been hard on him. He's not the same little boy who started this journey 8 months ago. What does he look like now? Jennifer was quiet for a moment. He's lost most of his hair from the chemotherapy. He's very thin, much smaller than a typical 4-year-old. He gets tired easily, and sometimes the medication makes him confused. But his spirit is still so bright. He still believes in magic, in miracles, in the possibility that meeting his hero might somehow change everything. After Travis hung up, he sat in his multi-million-dollar home, surrounded by every luxury money could buy, and felt smaller than he had ever felt in his life. Somewhere across the city, a 4-year-old boy was fighting for his life while dreaming of meeting a little boy who thought Travis Kelce might somehow be the key to his survival. Travis didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in his living room, staring out at the city lights and thinking about what it meant to be someone's hero. He'd scored touchdowns in front of millions of people, won championships, been celebrated and cheered, treated like a god by fans who wore his jersey. But none of that had prepared him for the weight of being a dying child's last hope. As dawn broke over Kansas City, Travis made a decision that would change not just Ethan's life, but his own understanding of what it meant to truly matter to someone. He was going to meet Ethan Morrison, and somehow he was going to make sure this little boy's faith in miracles wasn't misplaced. What Travis didn't know as he prepared to drive to Children's Mercy Hospital was that his meeting with Ethan would lead to the most emotionally devastating and ultimately transformative experience of his life. He was about to learn that sometimes the people we think we're saving are actually the ones who save us. And that lesson would soon be shared with millions of people who thought they understood what courage looked like, until they saw it through the eyes of a 4-year-old boy who refused to stop believing in the impossible. Travis arrived at Children's Mercy Hospital at 8 a.m. sharp, carrying a bag filled with Chiefs memorabilia he'd hastily gathered from his home office. Signed footballs, jerseys, photos, anything he thought might bring a smile to a sick child's face. He'd barely slept, his mind racing with questions about what to say, how to act, whether he could possibly live up to the expectations of a dying 4-year-old. The pediatric oncology ward was unlike anywhere Travis had ever been. The hallways were decorated with colorful murals and superhero drawings, an obvious attempt to inject joy into a place where children fought battles that would challenge the strongest adults. The sounds were different too. Instead of the usual hospital beeping and shuffling, there were occasional bursts of laughter, cartoon music from therapy sessions, and the gentle voices of nurses who had learned to find hope in the darkest places. Jennifer Martinez met him at the nurses' station, and Travis was struck by how young she looked. Probably not much older than him, but with eyes that carried the weight of watching children suffer and sometimes lose battles they were too young to be fighting. "Mr. Kelce," she said, extending her hand, "I can't thank you enough for coming. Ethan doesn't know you're here yet. I wanted to talk to you first, to prepare you for what you're going to see." She led him to a small consultation room where she pulled out Ethan's medical file, her expression growing serious. "Ethan was diagnosed with glioblastoma 8 months ago," Jennifer began. "It's an aggressive form of brain cancer that typically, the survival rate for children his age is very low. He's undergone 2 surgeries to remove as much of the tumor as possible, followed by intensive chemotherapy and radiation." Travis studied the before and after photos in the file. The before picture showed a chubby-cheeked little boy with a mop of sandy brown hair and a gap-toothed grin. The after photos documented the progression of his treatment: hair loss, weight loss, the gradual dimming of that bright smile as the fight took its toll. "How much time does he have?" Travis asked quietly. "Days, maybe a week. The cancer has progressed despite everything we've tried. At this point, we're focused on comfort care, making sure he's not in pain, allowing his family to spend as much time with him as possible." Jennifer closed the file and looked directly at Travis. "But here's what you need to understand about Ethan Morris. Despite everything he's been through, despite all the pain and the procedures and the medicine that makes him sick, he wakes up every morning believing that today might be the day something wonderful happened. He still asks his parents to read him stories about superheroes. He still cheers when he sees football on TV. He still believes in magic." "Tell me about his family," Travis said. "His parents, Michael and Sarah. are incredible. Michael works construction. Sarah's a part-time teacher. They've taken turns sleeping in his room for the past 8 months, never leaving him alone. They've used up all their saving, borrowed money from family, started a GoFundMe that barely covers the basics. But they've never let Ethan see them break down. In front of him, they're as hopeful as he is. As Jennifer led Travis toward room 314, she shared more details about the little boy he was about to meet. "Ethan knows every statistic about you," she said with a smile. "How many touchdowns you've scored, your career receiving yards, your favorite food, which he insists is the same as his, chocolate chip cookies. He's been practicing throwing a football with the child life specialist, even though he can barely lift it over his head, and he wants to show you spiral." They stopped outside room 314, and through the window, Travis could see a small figure in the hospital bed, surrounded by Chiefs posters and get-well cards from strangers who had heard his story. Michael and Sarah Morrison sat on either side of the bed, reading from a picture book, while their son listened with rapt attention. "Are you ready?" Jennifer asked. Travis nodded, though he wasn't sure anyone could be ready for what he was about to experience. Jennifer knocked softly and opened the door. "Ethan, I have a surprise visitor for you." The little boy looked up from his book, and Travis felt his breath catch. Ethan was tiny, so much smaller than Travis had expected, with pale skin made almost translucent by months of treatment. A knit cap covered his bald head, and an IV line ran from his small hand to a bag of medication hanging beside his bed. But when Ethan saw Travis, his face lit up with a joy so pure and complete that it nearly brought the grown man to his knees. "Travis Kelce!" Ethan shouted with all the energy his weakened body could muster. "Mom! Dad! It's really him! It's number 87! Travis approached the bed slowly, overwhelmed by the mixture of joy and heartbreak washing over him. "Hey there, buddy. I heard you're a Chiefs fan." "I'm your biggest fan in the whole world," Ethan declared, trying to sit up straighter in bed. "I have your jersey and your poster, and I watch all your games with my dad. Will you sign my football?" Ethan's parents stood up, clearly as shocked as their son was excited. Michael extended his hand to Travis, his voice thick with emotion. "Mr. Kelce, I can't believe you're here. We never expected. We tried to contact your team, but we know how busy you must be." There's nowhere else I'd rather be," Travis said honestly, and meant it completely. For the next hour, Travis sat beside Ethan's bed, signing memorabilia, looking at the scrapbook Ethan's mother had made of Chiefs highlights, and listening to the little boy's incredibly detailed analysis of Travis's performance in recent games. "The catch you made against the Raiders last month was amazing," Ethan said, his eyes bright with excitement. "You jumped so high. I've been practicing jumping too, look." Despite his weakness, Ethan demonstrated his jumping technique from his hospital bed, barely able to lift himself a few inches off the mattress, but the pride on his face was unmistakable. "That's perfect form," Travis said seriously. "You've been studying the game." "I want to play for the Chiefs when I grow up," Ethan said matter-of-factly. "After I beat the cancer, I'm going to get really strong and learn how to catch footballs just like you." The simple confidence in Ethan's voice, his absolute certainty that he would beat cancer and grow up to play professional football, hit Travis harder than any tackle he'd ever endured. "Ethan," Travis said carefully, "what position do you want to play?" "Tight end, just like you, but I also want to play quarterback sometime, and running back, and maybe safety too." "Is that allowed?" Travis laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd felt all day. "In backyard football, you can play every position." As the visit continued, Travis found himself forgetting about everything else. The cameras outside, his schedule, the weight of what he knew about Ethan's prognosis. All that mattered was this moment, this little boy who saw him not as a celebrity, but as a friend who shared his love of football. When it was time to leave, Ethan grabbed Travis's hand with surprising strength. "Will you come back and visit me?" he asked. "Of course I will," Travis promised. "And when I get better, will you teach me how to run routes like you do?" Travis looked into Ethan's hopeful eyes, seeing a faith that nothing in his adult experience had prepared him to understand. "I'll teach you everything I know." As Travis left the hospital that day, he carried with him something he'd never experienced before: the weight of being someone's miracle. Ethan Morrison didn't just want to meet his hero. He believed that meeting Travis might somehow give him the strength to survive. And Travis was about to discover that sometime, when someone believes in you that completely, it changes everything about who you think you're supposed to be. Travis couldn't eat for the rest of the day. He sat in his kitchen, staring at a plate of food that had grown cold while he replayed every moment of his visit with Ethan. The little boy's words echoed in his mind. "When I get better, will you teach me how to run routes?" The absolute certainty in his voice, the unwavering belief that recovery was just a matter of time, had shaken Travis in ways he was still trying to understand. His phone buzzed constantly with texts from his agent, his teammates, and friends who had heard about his hospital visit. Word was already spreading through social media. Someone had spotted him at Children's Mercy Hospital, and speculation was running wild about why he was there. But Travis ignored all of it. Instead, he found himself researching pediatric brain cancer, reading medical journals and survival statistics that painted a picture so bleak it made him physically ill. Glioblastoma in children. Stage 4. The words that Jennifer had used took on new meaning as he learned what they really meant for Ethan's chances. At 11 p.m., his phone rang. Jennifer Martinez again. "Mr. Kelce, I'm sorry to call so late again, but I thought you should know. After you left today, Ethan was more energetic than we've seen him in weeks. He spent 2 hours telling every nurse, doctor, and visitor about your visit. He's convinced that meeting you was the turning point he needed." Travis felt his throat tighten. "How is he tonight?" "That's actually why I'm calling. His condition has taken a turn. The cancer is pressing more aggressively on his brainstem. We've had to increase his pain medication significantly, and..." Jennifer's voice broke slightly. "We don't think he has much time left. Maybe 48 hours, possibly less." The words hit Travis like a physical blow. "What can I do? I don't know if there's anything anyone can do at this point. But I thought you should know, because Ethan has been asking for you. He wants to show you something he's been working on. I'll be there first thing in the morning. Mr. Kelce, I need to warn you, he's not the same little boy you met this morning. The medication is making him drowsy, and the disease is progressing rapidly. But somehow his spirit is still fighting." After hanging up, Travis sat in his living room, surrounded by all the trappings of his success, and felt more helpless than he'd ever felt in his life. Somewhere across the city, a 4-year-old boy was losing his battle with cancer, while still believing that meeting his hero had given him the strength to win. Travis called his agent David first thing next morning. "I need to cancel everything for the next week," Travis said without preamble. "Travis, you have the charity gala tomorrow night. 500 people, corporate sponsors, media coverage. We can't cancel with 1 day's notice." "Then don't cancel it. Change it." "Change it to what?" Travis had been thinking about this all night, an idea forming that was either brilliant or completely insane. "I want to make it about Ethan Morris. Instead of the usual fundraising dinner, I want to turn it into something that honors him, and I want to invite everyone to hear his story." "Travis, I don't understand. Who is Ethan Morris?" As Travis explained about the little boy fighting brain cancer, about his last wish, and his unwavering faith in miracles, David listened with growing amazement. "You want to change a corporate charity gala into a tribute for a dying child you met 2 days ago?" "I want to change it into something that mattered," Travis replied. "David, this little boy believes that meeting me gave him the strength to beat cancer. He's going to die believing that, because I can't actually save him. But maybe I can make sure his faith in miracles means something to other people." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that if Ethan Morrison can face death with that much hope and courage, then the least I can do is share his story with people who have everything but don't appreciate any. I'm thinking about reading something at the gala. Something that might help people understand what I learned from a 4-year-old about what actually matters in life." David was quiet for a long moment. "Travis, are you sure about this? Once you go public with this story, it becomes bigger than just you and this child. It becomes about everything. How we treat sick children, healthcare costs, the meaning of celebrity, what we owe each other as human beings. Maybe that's exactly what it should become." When Travis arrived at the hospital that morning, Ethan's room was quieter than it had been the day before. The little boy was awake but clearly struggling, his breathing labored and his movement slow. but when he saw Travis, he still managed to smile. "Travis, I was waiting for you. I made something for you." Ethan's mother, Sarah, helped him sit up in bed and handed him a piece of paper covered in crayon drawings and shaky 4-year-old handwriting. "I drew you a picture of us playing football together," Ethan explained, his voice weaker than it had been the day before. "See? That's you catching a touchdown, and that's me throwing you the ball. And look," he pointed to stick figures on the sideline. "That's my mom and dad cheering for us." Travis took the drawing, studying the simple figures that somehow captured more joy and hope than any professional artwork he'd ever owned. "And I wrote you a letter," Ethan continued, struggling to stay focused as the medication clouded his thoughts. "Mom helped me spell the words, but I told her what to write." Sarah handed Travis a second piece of paper, this one with neater handwriting but unmistakably Ethan's word. "Dear Travis, thank you for being my friend. I know I'm sick, but meeting you made me feel strong like a superhero. Even if the cancer doesn't go away, I'm not scared anymore because I got to meet my favorite player and he's even nicer than I thought he would be. Will you remember me when you play football? Will you catch a touchdown for me? Love, Ethan P.S. I hope when you're sad you remember that I wasn't sad when I met you. I was the happiest boy in the world." Travis read the letter 3 times before he could speak, his vision blurred by tears he no longer tried to hide. "Ethan," he said finally, "I'm going to do more than catch a touchdown for you. Tomorrow night, I'm going to tell a whole room full of people about the bravest little boy I've ever met. And I'm going to read them a letter I wrote for you." "You wrote me a letter too?" "I did. And in it, I tried to explain what you taught me about being brave, about believing in good things, even when everything seems scary." Ethan's eyes lit up with as much energy as his weakened body could muster. "Will you read it to me first?" Travis pulled out his phone, where he'd been typing, retyping his thoughts throughout the sleepless night. "Are you ready?" Ethan nodded, settling back against his pillows with the focused attention that only children could give to something they found important. Travis began to read the letter that would, in less than 24 hours, change everything for both of them, and for the millions of people who would hear it. Back to the present, the gala. Travis looked out at the silent auditorium, then back at Ethan's photo on the massive screen behind him. The little boy's smile seemed to give him strength as he unfolded the letter he'd read to Ethan just hours before. 3 days ago, Travis continued, his voice steadier now. "I thought I understood what it meant to be successful. I had everything money could buy, every accolade an athlete could want. But then I met a 4-year-old boy who taught me that everything I thought I knew about strength, about courage, about what really matters in life, was wrong." He held up the letter, his hands still trembling slightly. "This is what I wrote to Ethan Morrison. But as I read it to him this afternoon, I realized I was really writing it to myself, and maybe to all of us who think we understand what it means to be truly wealthy." Travis took a deep breath and began to read. "Dear Ethan, when I first walked into your hospital room, I thought I was coming to meet a little boy who was sick. What I found instead was the strongest person I've ever met. Someone who taught me more about life in 2 days than I'd learned in 34 years. You asked me to teach you how to catch footballs, but buddy, you're the one who taught me how to catch the things that really matter. You see, Ethan, I've spent my whole adult life chasing things. Touchdowns, contracts, championships, fame, money. I thought success meant having more yard, more win, more stuff. I lived in a world where everything was about the next game, the next season, the next achievement. But then you looked at me with those bright eyes of yours and asked me the most important question anyone has ever asked me. Will you remember me when you play football? And I realized that I've been playing football, I've been living, for all the wrong reasons. You're 4 years old, Ethan. 4. You should be worried about whether you'll get to stay up late or if you can have ice cream for breakfast. Instead, you're fighting a battle that would break most grown men. And you know what's amazing? You're not angry. You're not asking, why me? You're asking, will you be my friend? You taught me that it doesn't matter how many people cheer for you if you don't have someone who believes in you. You taught me that success isn't about what you accomplish. It's about who you touch along the way. I make millions of dollars, Ethan, but I've never been as rich as you are. You're rich in courage. You're rich in hope. You're rich in the kind of love that makes everyone around you better just by knowing you. You asked me if I would catch a touchdown for you, and I promise I will. But more than that, I want to live every day the way you do, with complete faith that something wonderful might happen. with kindness for everyone you meet, with gratitude for every moment you're given. Because here's what you taught me, little man. Tomorrow is never guaranteed to any of us. Not to me, not to the richest person in the world, not to anyone. But that doesn't mean we should be afraid. It means we should be grateful. Grateful for today, grateful for the people we love, grateful for the chance to make someone else's day a little brighter. You made my life brighter, Ethan. In 2 days, you changed everything I thought I knew about what it means to be a champion. A champion isn't someone who wins every game. A champion is someone who keeps playing even when the odds are against them. Someone who makes everyone around them believe in miracles. Someone who faces the scariest thing in the world with a smile and asks, "Will you be my friend?" You're the greatest champion I've ever met. And whether you beat this cancer or whether God decides he needs the bravest little boy in heaven to help him take care of other kids, you've already won the most important game there is. You've won at being human. You've won at being loved. I promise you, Ethan, that every time I step on that football field, I'll remember you. Not because you're sick, but because you're the strongest person I know. Every touchdown I catch will be for you. But more than that, every day I live will be better because I got to learn from you. Thank you for teaching me that the real game isn't played on Sunday afternoon. It's played every day, in hospital rooms and living rooms and classrooms, and everywhere people choose to be kind instead of cruel, hopeful instead of afraid, grateful instead of angry. Thank you for showing me what it looks like to be brave. Thank you for reminding me that tomorrow belongs to God, but today belongs to us. Your friend forever, Travis. The silence in the auditorium was absolute. 5,000 people sat motionless, many wiping tears from their eyes, as Travis folded the letter and looked back up at Ethan's photo. When I finished reading this letter to Ethan this afternoon, Travis continued, his voice thick with emotion. He looked at me with those incredible eyes and said something that I'll never forget as long as I live. Travis paused, gathering himself before continuing. He said, "Travis, I'm not scared anymore, because now I know that even if I go to heaven, you'll remember me every time you play football. And maybe other people will remember me too, and they'll try to be brave, like we learned to be brave together." A sob escaped from someone in the audience, and Travis could see people throughout the room struggling to maintain their composure. And then, Travis said, "Ethan asked me one more favor. He asked me to tell all of you something." Travis looked directly into the cameras he knew were broadcasting this moment live. He said, "Tell them that being sick taught me that every day is a present. Tell them that I hope they unwrap their present every morning. And remember that today is the only day that's promised to them. Tell them that if a little boy with cancer can be happy, then maybe they can be happy too." The audience erupted in applause, but Travis raised his hand for quiet. He wasn't finished. "Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Morrison's battle with cancer has cost his family everything they had. Insurance has covered some of it, but the experimental treatments, the medications, the specialized care, it's financially devastating. His parents have mortgaged their home, borrowed against their retirement, and still they're facing impossible choices about his care." Travis pulled out his phone and held it up. But here's the thing about miracles. Sometimes they come from the most unexpected places. The screen behind him changed from Ethan's photo to display information about an experimental treatment program in Germany, a cutting-edge immunotherapy protocol that had shown promising results in cases like Ethan. Dr. Muller in Berlin has agreed to accept Ethan into his program. The treatment costs $500,000, plus travel and extended stay expense. It's expensive, it's uncertain, but it's hope. Travis looked back at the audience. "And tonight, I'm announcing that the Travis Kelce Foundation is providing full funding for Ethan's treatment." The applause was thunderous, but Travis continued speaking over it. "But more than that, we're establishing the Ethan Morrison Fund for Pediatric Cancer Research. Because if a 4-year-old boy can teach a grown man how to live, then maybe together we can find ways to make sure other children don't have to fight this battle alone." As the crowd rose to their feet in a standing ovation that lasted nearly 5 minutes, Travis looked up at Ethan's photo one more time. What he didn't tell the audience was what he'd promised Ethan in his hospital room that afternoon, that no matter what happened, Ethan's story would inspire others to live with more courage, more gratitude, and more love. And what Travis didn't know yet was that this moment, broadcast live to millions of people around the world, was about to trigger an outpouring of support that would change pediatric cancer treatment forever. But first, there was a little boy in Germany who needed to know that miracles sometimes come in the form of strangers who decide to care. 6 months later, Travis stood in the same auditorium where he had first shared Ethan's story. But this time, he wasn't alone on the stage. Beside him stood a little boy, a full head of sandy brown hair, bright blue eyes sparkling with health and energy, wearing a Chiefs jersey with Morrison 4 on the back. A custom jersey the team had made specially for him. Ethan Morrison, now 5 years old, was cancer-free. The experimental treatment in Germany had been grueling. 6 months of intensive immunotherapy, multiple procedures, and countless uncertain days when the outcome could have gone either way. But Ethan had approached it the same way he'd approached everything else in his young life, with unshakable faith that something wonderful was about to happen. "Tell them about the doctors in Germany," Travis said to Ethan, who was standing confidently at the microphone that had been lowered to his height. "The doctors were really nice," Ethan said, his voice clear and strong as it carried through the auditorium. "They spoke funny English. They gave me stickers every day and let me pick what flavor medicine I wanted. And they said I was the bravest patient they ever had." The audience, many of the same people who had been there 6 months earlier, laughed and applauded, but there wasn't a dry eye in the house. "And tell them what Dr. Muller said about your scans," Travis prompted. "He said the cancer is all gone," Ethan announced with the pure joy that only a child could express. "He said I'm completely healthy, and I can play football and run and do everything other kids do." What the audience didn't know yet was the full scope of what Ethan's story had triggered in the 6 months since Travis had first shared his letter. The video of Travis reading his letter to Ethan had been viewed over 200 million times across all platforms. But more importantly, it had inspired an unprecedented response from people around the world who wanted to help children fighting similar battles. The Ethan Morrison Fund had raised over $50 million in its first 6 months, funding research at pediatric cancer centers across the globe. But perhaps more significantly, it had sparked a movement of ordinary people doing extraordinary things for sick children in their community. Travis took the microphone back from Ethan. "When I shared Ethan's story 6 months ago, I thought I was telling you about one remarkable little boy. What I didn't expect was to learn about the remarkable capacity for goodness that exists in people everywhere." He gestured to the audience, many of whom were wearing Team Ethan t-shirts that had become a symbol of hope for families facing pediatric cancer. The response to Ethan's story has been overwhelming. We've received donations from children who emptied their piggy bank, from retired teachers who sent their Social Security checks, from CEOs and construction workers, and stay-at-home parents and college students. People who had never met Ethan, but who understood that his fight was worth supporting. Travis pulled out his phone and began reading statistics that still amazed him. The Ethan Morrison Fund has now funded treatment for 127 children in 17 countries. We've established research partnerships with medical centers on 4 continents. And perhaps most importantly, we've proven that when people come together around a shared belief that every child's life matters, we can actually change outcome. But it was what Travis said next that surprised even his closest advisors. However, the most important thing Ethan taught me wasn't about fundraising or cancer treatment or even miracle. It was about purpose. Travis looked down at Ethan, who was sitting on the edge of the stage, swinging his legs and grinning at the crowd. "Ethan taught me that success isn't measured by touchdowns or championships or bank accounts. It's measured by whether you make someone else's life better just by being in it." Travis paused, looking out at the audience with the same vulnerability he'd shown 6 months earlier. "Which is why I'm announcing tonight that after this football season, I'll be transitioning from full-time NFL player to full-time advocate for children's health initiatives. The Ethan Morrison Fund is expanding into the Ethan Morrison Children's Foundation, and I'll be dedicating the rest of my career to making sure no family has to choose between their child's life and financial ruin." The audience erupted, but Travis wasn't finished with his surprise. "And Ethan has something he wants to tell everyone." Ethan jumped up and grabbed the microphone with the confidence of someone who had learned he could overcome anything. "I want to tell all the kids who are sick like I was," Ethan said, his 5-year-old voice carrying the wisdom of someone who had stared down death and one. Being sick is really scary, but there are so many people who want to help you. And even when you're scared, you can still be brave. And even when everything hurts, you can still find things to be happy about. He looked directly into the cameras broadcasting the event. And I want to tell all the grown-up, if you're sad about your job or your money or your problem, just remember that every day you're not sick is a really, really good day. And if you have people who love you, then you're the richest person in the world. Gertrude, the simplicity and profound truth of Ethan's words left the audience speechless for several moments before the applause began, an applause that lasted nearly 10 minutes. As the formal event concluded, Travis and Ethan were surrounded by well-wishers, reporters, and families who had been helped by the foundation. But it was a quiet conversation between Travis and Ethan's parents, Michael and Sarah, that captured the true meaning of what had transpired. "Travis," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion, "6 months ago, we thought we were going to lose our son. We had given up hope, spent everything we had, and were preparing for the worst. Then you walked into our lives and changed everything. You didn't just save Ethan's life," Sarah added. "You gave us back our faith that good things can happen to ordinary people. You showed us that miracles aren't just things that happen to other families and stories. They can happen to us too." Travis shook his head. "You have it backward. Ethan saved my life. He taught me what it means to live with purpose, to understand that having everything means nothing if you're not using it to help others." Later that evening, as the auditorium emptied and the cameras were packed away, Travis found himself alone with Ethan, a quiet space where their journey had begun 6 months earlier. "Travis," Ethan said, tugging on his friend's sleeve, "can I ask you something? Anything but. Do you think other kids who are sick will hear about what happened to me and know that they can get better too?" Travis knelt down to Ethan's eye level, seeing in the little boy's face the same hope and determination that had first captured his heart. "Ethan, I think children all over the world are going to hear your story and learn the most important lesson anyone can learn, that no matter how scared you are, no matter how impossible things seem, there are always people who care enough to help. And sometimes, when you believe in miracles hard enough, they actually happen." Ethan nodded solemnly, then broke into the brilliant smile that had become a symbol of hope for millions of people. "Good," he said, "because I want every kid to be as happy as I am." 3 months later, the Ethan Morrison Children's Foundation opened its first dedicated treatment center in Kansas City, a state-of-the-art facility where children with serious illnesses could receive the best possible care regardless of their family's ability to pay. The center's mission statement, written collaboratively by Travis and Ethan, was simple. Every child deserves the chance to grow up, and every family deserves hope. On opening day, Ethan cut the ribbon with oversized scissors, surrounded by dozens of children who were beginning their own battles with serious illness. As the cameras captured the moment, Ethan turned to Travis with the same wisdom that had first changed the football player's life. "Travis," he said, "I think this is what miracles really are. Not just getting better when you're sick, but helping other people get better too." Travis realized that Ethan was right. The real miracle wasn't that one little boy had survived cancer. It was that his survival had created a ripple effect of compassion that would save countless other children. As they walked through the new facility together, Travis reflected on how a single phone call from a desperate nurse had led to this moment, how one dying child's faith in miracles had transformed not just his own life, but the lives of thousands of families around the world. The letter Travis had written to Ethan, the letter that had moved millions to tears and action, now hung framed in the center's lobby, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful words are those written from a broken heart to a brave soul. But perhaps the most meaningful addition to the center was a simple plaque by the entrance, featuring Ethan's own words from that night 6 months earlier. "If a little boy with cancer can be happy, then maybe you can be happy too." Because, in the end, that was Ethan Morrison's real gift to the world. Not just proof that miracles can happen, but a reminder that happiness, hope, and human goodness are always possible, even in the darkest circumstances. And every child who walked through those doors would learn what Travis had learned in a hospital room 6 months earlier, that sometimes the people we think we're saving are actually the ones who save us.